dear students, welcome to the chemistry class. Uh, we'll begin the class by taking important chapter, that is solutions. So, for this academic year, I'll be taking 3 chapters, mainly from physical chemistry. From Unit 1, I'll be handling solid state. Unit 2, obviously I'll begin the Unit 2 now, solutions. And Unit 3 is electrochemistry. Okay. So the weightage of this chapter, solutions, is, I'll keep it for 7. So these 3 chapters, that is solid state, solutions, and electrochemistry, I'll be handling for this academic year. So straight away, I'll begin this chapter, that is Unit 2, solutions. So let us understand this chapter little by little. As you know that we have studied some of the important basic things in first PUC. So in states of matter, you have studied about the gaseous states and gas laws and everything, right? Okay. So in second PUC, we'll be studying about the solid state chemistry, and the solutions. Okay. So by all these things, we will cover the 3 different states of matter. Okay. So let us understand with some general introduction about the solutions chapter. So what do you know about solution? Basically, you know about the solutions. Already dealt with some of the solutions in laboratory and all, right? Okay. So I'm presenting you a slide over here. You can see a beaker over here. Okay, there is an empty beaker. Say for example, I've taken some solvent. Let's take water. Okay, and I've added salt into this water in a beaker. So what happens is the salt particles gets dissolved in the water and it will form a solution. It's very obvious. You must have observed in your home, right? Okay. So by looking at this example, what you can define a solution is. A solution is a homogeneous mixture of 2 or more chemically non-reacting substances whose composition can be varied within certain limits, right? So I've taken a salt as one component and water as another component of a solution. Both are the part of solution. So it is basically a 2 or more non-reacting substances. Okay. So if I want to check the solution's concentration, whichever part I want to pick from the solution, the concentration or the composition will remain the same. It is a homogeneous mixture. So that is the basic definition of the solution. So apart from that, so I have taken a salt. So what do we call this component as? And I've taken a water. So what is this component as? So salt and water is a solute and solvent. Solute and solvent. So how do you define a solute, or how do you define a solvent? Okay. Here is how you define a solute. A solute is the component of a solution which is present in small amount. Okay. It is present in small amount. So what about solvent? Solvent is also a part of the solution, the component of a solution which is present in large amount. Okay. Large amount. Okay. So this is the basic definition about the solute and the solvent. Okay. Next, we'll look about the some of the important solutions which we need to know as we study about the solutions chapter. Aqueous solution. Most probably you have seen this aqueous solution and you have used the aqueous solution. So what is an aqueous solution? A solution which is prepared by using water as a solvent is called as aqueous solution. Okay, very simple. You take, say for example, I'll give some example. Generally, when you dissolve potassium chloride with water, what you get is, you get a solution which is an aqueous solution. aqueous solution, or ammonium chloride plus water is a solution which is also an aqueous solution, or NaCl plus water gives you aqueous solution. So in all the three cases, so which solvent I used? That is the water. So basically, whichever the solution you prepare by taking solvent as water, that is your aqueous solution. Okay. So next type of solution is non-aqueous solution. So generally non-aqueous means aqueous, that is water is not present, non-aqueous. Okay. The solution which is prepared by using non-aqueous solvents. So which are the non-aqueous solvents? That is benzene, carbon tetrachloride, ether, or chloroform. Okay. So these type of solvents which are used to prepare a particular solution is called as non-aqueous solution. Okay. So these are the two types of solutions. So why do we need to study about the solution so much in this chapter? And what is the point in understanding about this solution? So there are a lot of applications from this solution. As we know, most of the reactions in chemistry, most of the chemical reactions happen in the solution form, or liquid phase, right? It's happen in the liquid phase. So as chemists, it's very important to understand or study about the solutions. Okay. So you know that there are some applications like brass. So brass is a homogeneous mixture of two important elements, that is copper and zinc. Okay. German silver. German silver is a mixture of copper, zinc, and nickel. Bronze, copper, and tin. So these are used in some of the ornamental purpose or statues making and other things. Okay. And also in some sometimes we use this intravenous fluids in hospitals. So it is also injected in the form of solution state, right? So to know all these basic things will help us to have a better and better knowledge about the solutions. Okay. So next we'll study about the types of solutions. So which are the types of solutions? How do we classify the three different types of solutions? We'll understand. So basically we have classified the types of solutions, that is we have classified the solutions into three different types based on the physical state of the solvent. Okay. So basically we have classified the solutions into three different categories based on the physical state of the solvent. Okay. The first type of solution is solid solution. Okay. Here we can see our solvent is going to be solid. It will remain as it is. It is solid. And the solute will be either solid, liquid, or gas. Okay. The very common thing is the solvent is going to be solid itself. Okay. Right. The second type of solution is liquid solution, and the solvent is going to be liquid. Okay. And obviously the solute should be either solid, liquid, or gas. And similarly, in gaseous solutions, the solvent is going to be gas. Okay. So here you can expect 1 or 2 marks question from this classification. That is, give an example for solid solution or liquid solution. Such kind of questions will arise in the question paper. Okay. So I've given the examples for three different types of solution, that is solid, liquid, and gaseous solution. Okay. Solid solution, you can see alloys, as I told you now before previous slide. So alloys, some of the alloys we have seen, that is brass, German silver, and gold. These are the examples for solid solutions. Okay. Yes, solid, both are solids. That is, take an example of gold. So it is a mixture of two elements. Okay, that is gold plus copper. Okay, so both are solid. So when you melt and then mix the two elements, it becomes solidified and it forms a mixture of. It's an example for solid in solid. Okay. Next, liquid in liquid, you have hydrated salts. Okay, hydrated salts are amalgamation of mercury with sodium. It's an example for liquid in liquid. Third one is gas in solid. So hydrogen trapped in palladium is the best example for gas in solid. Okay. Uh, Second type of solution is liquid solutions. Here also you have the solvent is liquid, and three different types also exist here. There is solid in liquid, liquid in liquid, and gas in liquid. For solid in liquid, you have it's a very common example, salt which is dissolved in water. Okay. Liquid in liquid, you have methanol or ethanol which is being diluted with water is an example. For gas in liquid, it's a very common example, aerated drinks, which you can see in your daily life is the best example for gas in liquid type of solutions. Okay. The third type of solution is a gaseous solution. As I told you before, the solvent is going to be gas, right? So here also you have three different types. You have solid in gas, liquid in gas, and gas in gas, right? So I've given the example for all the three different types. So basically what you have to do, you have to go through these examples and try to remember the examples. Okay, let's move on. Okay, next we will understand about the solutions of solid and liquid. First we'll take the first category of solution, that is solid and liquid type of solution. Okay, solubility of solid in liquid. So let us understand how the solubility of a solid is understood with an example. Okay, so here I've taken a beaker. Say for example, I'm adding a solute into a solvent. For example, solvent, I've taken water, and solute is, I'll take salt. Okay, so now when you add salt into water, so for example, I have taken 500 ml of water and I've added 10 gram of salt. Basically what happens is when you add the salt into water, the solute particles will interact with the solid molecules. Okay, let's say you have a solute particles. Okay, okay, so they try to interact, the solute particles try to interact with the solvent molecules. So because of this interaction, what happens? Solute will interact with solvent. This interaction leads to dissolution. Leads to dissolution. So the very first thing what happens is the interaction of solute will takes place with the solvent, which leads to dissolution. Okay, the first thing. Next, suppose I add 10 more gram of salt into the beaker. So what happens? Now, slowly the solute again interact with the solvent molecules and dissolution will continue. Now, the solution concentration of the solution increases. The concentration of the solution increases. As I add 10 more gram, keep on adding, the concentration will slowly rise. Okay. Suppose further if I add 10 more gram. Okay. At one particular temperature, at one particular temperature, the rate of dissolution becomes equal to rate of crystallization. Rate of crystallization or precipitation. Rate of precipitation. Okay. So when this happens, that is, say suppose some 10 molecules are getting dissolved in the solvent and to form a solution. In the same way, the 10 molecules are getting separated from the solution. So the rate of dissolution will become equal to rate of precipitation. So we call this state as dynamic equilibrium. We call this state as dynamic equilibrium. Okay. So when the solution attains this dynamic equilibrium, no more solute can be dissolved into that particular solution. So no more solute, no more solute can be dissolved in a solvent. So at this point, we call this solution as saturated solution. So what do we call this as? Saturated solution. So this is the particular state where no more solute can be, or maximum amount of solute is dissolved in a solution. That particular point we call it as saturated solution. Now, if I further add 10 more gram of salt into the saturated solution, the dissolution process will not continue. So what happens is slowly the salt will get separated from the solution and it will slowly start to precipitate. So this particular point we call it as precipitation. This is the precipitation state. Okay, so what we have learned here is when you see the first thing, the moment when you add the solute and the solvent, so we can see the interaction. The interaction between the solute and solvent molecules leads to dissolution. Okay, dissolution process. Further, if you add at one particular temperature, the rate of dissolution becomes equal to rate of precipitation. So at particular point, we can say this state as dynamic equilibrium, or the solution has attained the dynamic equilibrium where there is maximum amount of solute has been dissolved in a particular solvent. So this is called as a saturated solution. To a saturated solution, if you further add extra solute, the precipitation will happen. That is, separation of the solute particles from the solution will take place. Okay, so this is temperature dependent. So this is the basic thing about the solubility of a solid in a liquid. Okay, we'll go further. Let us study about the factors. So what are the factors which affects the solubility of a solid in liquid? We'll study. Okay, so these factors are important for 2 marks. Okay, the very first factor we can see over here in the slide, the nature of the solute and solvent. So what should be the nature of a solute and what are the nature of the solvent, that we need to understand with an example. So we have taken 4 beakers, 1, 2, 3 and 4. So I have marked the first beaker and the second beaker. So it is, I have taken water in the first and second beaker. Okay. And in the third and fourth beaker, I have taken benzene. Okay. So in the first and second beaker, I'm going to add sodium chloride, sodium chloride and potassium chloride. And in the third and the fourth beaker, I'm adding some organic compounds, that is naphthalene and anthracene. So you obviously know that sodium chloride and potassium chloride are polar solutes or ionic compounds, right? And water is obviously everybody knows that it is a polar solvent, right? Okay. So non-polar solutes, your naphthalene and anthracene are non-polar compounds or non-polar solutes. Benzene is a non-polar solvent. Okay. So what happens is here the sodium chloride gets dissolved with water very easily without any hesitation. It will get dissolved with water. What happens is because of the ionic interaction, because of the electrostatic force of attraction between the opposite charges, the sodium chloride will get dissolved with water and it will form a solution very quickly. But in the same way, when you see naphthalene and benzene interaction, here also naphthalene will get dissolved in benzene very easily. So why this happens? And if I interchange this, if I suppose take naphthalene and I drop it in water, will the dissolution happens? The dissolution will not happen. Why? Because only a like substance dissolves in a like solvents. That is, like dissolves in like. That is, polar solutes dissolves in polar solvent. Similarly, non-polar solutes dissolves in non-polar solvents. But okay, so this is the first factor which affects the solubility. What is the nature? The nature should be, if you are taking polar solute, obviously you have to take polar solvent. Okay. If you take a polar solute and a polar solvent, what type of interaction happens? I've told you. So if there is any positive charge, the negative charge of the solvent will attack the positive charge because of the strong electrostatic force of attraction. Electrostatic force of attraction. Okay. They will interact with each other and they will dissolve the solute molecules into the solvent. Okay. This is what happens when you mix a polar solute with a polar solvent. Okay. So basically three types of interactions are possible when you dissolve a polar solute with a polar solvent. The first type of interaction is it may happen with solute plus solvent interaction. Solute plus solvent interaction. That is, your solute might interact with a solvent that will lead to one kind of interaction. Second type of interaction is your solute will interact with solute. Both the solute particles can interact with each other and they try to dissolve. Third type of interaction is solvent interaction. So these three types of interaction will leads to the dissolution of a polar solute in polar solvent. Okay, so this is the thing about the first factor. We'll move on to the further next factor, that is temperature. So temperature is also one of the key factor which plays when you dissolve a solute in a solvent. Okay. So as you all know that there are two types of uh, reactions possible when you dissolve a solute in a solvent. Okay. Suppose when I take a solute and I dissolve in a solvent, if suppose heat is being absorbed, heat is being absorbed during the dissolution process, such kind of dissolution or the net dissolution process undergoes in an endothermic way. Okay, if a heat is absorbed while dissolving a solute in a solvent, then such kind of dissolution process we call it as endothermic process. So why this endothermic process happens? Why the heat is absorbed? Why the heat is absorbed? Because when you take solute and when you take solvent, before they interact with each other, the solute-solute bond will break first. Okay, energy is required to break the solute-solute bonds. Once the solute particles are broken and they will interact with the solvent, dissolution will happen, and a new bond is formed between solute and a solvent. So whenever a new bond is formed, energy is released. Energy is released. So since the energy released here, if the energy released is lesser compared to energy required to break the solute-solute bond. Okay, observe, I'll repeat once again. So if the energy released when a new bond is formed is comparatively lesser when an energy required to break the solute-solute bond, then such kind of reaction is nothing but an endothermic reaction. Here the energy is taken from the surrounding to break the bonds between the solute-solute molecules. So that's why the reaction or the process, the net reaction, the net dissolution process is undergoing in an endothermic way. So what is the application of this? So if you apply the Le-Chatelier's principle, okay. So Le-Chatelier's principle is very familiar with you from first PUC. So according to Le-Chatelier's principle, what the laws or the principle says is, so when a system at equilibrium undergoes any change, so for example, in the temperature, concentration, or any other changes happens, the system will try to neutralize the effect, right? So here also, when you apply the Le-Chatelier's principle, so the system will try to go in a forward direction. Okay, that means whenever there is an increase in the temperature, the rate of dissolution also increases. Okay, so if it is an endothermic reaction. So similarly, if the process of dissolution is exothermic, okay, obviously it will happen in an opposite direction. That is, to dissolve a solute in a solvent, the net dissolution process is exothermic, and if you apply the Le-Chatelier's principle, so the rate of, that is the direction of the reaction is backwards, that is increase in the temperature decreases the rate of dissolution according to the Le-Chatelier's principle. So third factor which affects the solubility of a solid in liquid is, so that is pressure, which is, it has no effect when you dissolve a solid in liquid. Actually, pressure has no role to play because solids are incompressible, right? So these are the two factors which basically affects the solubility of a solid in liquid. Okay, so I will stop here and I will continue from the next topic in the next class. Okay, thank you, students.